Hi there, and welcome to the latest Predatar Webcast. I'm Ben Hodge, I'm Head of Marketing here at Predatar, and I'm joining you from Predatar HQ in Oxford in the UK. So today we're joined by Ian Richardson, Predatar's CTO. So he's in his home office just outside London. So let's say a quick hello to Ian. Hi there, Ian.
Thanks, Ben. Looking forward to it.
And we've also got Predatar's Managing Director, Rick Norgate, on the line. So Rick is joining us from the US, where he's on a whirlwind tour, visiting some of our stateside customers and technology partners. So thank you for joining us, Rick. Where exactly are you today?
Hi Ben, I'm in Washington DC. It's really sunny here. I've got a nice coffee, so I think we're good to go.
Great. Well, thank you guys. I'm really glad that you could join us. And I'm glad the sun's shining for you, Rick. So let's take a quick look at what we've got in store for today's session. So today's webcast is titled Recovery Assurance for All with CleanRoom 3. But before we get into details of how Predatar's third generation Cyber Recovery CleanRoom is different, we'll take a step back. I expect that some folks joining us today won't be familiar with Predatar. So first of all, we'll discuss what we mean when we talk about recovery assurance and cleanrooms. We'll give a quick overview of what they are and why they're quickly becoming a necessity for organisations that rely on data. So next, we'll take a quick look at a real-world use case to give you a flavour of the value of recovery assurance in practice. And finally, we'll dive into what's new in Predatar's third generation cleanroom. More specifically, we'll be discussing how it's made adoption of Cyber Recovery CleanRoom technology achievable for more businesses than ever before. So we'll be looking at how CleanRoom 3 has lowered barriers to adoption, including how it's more cost effective and easier to buy, how it's significantly simplified deployment and setup, and also how it's generally a more flexible solution. So, your questions. We've switched off viewers' mics today to avoid any background noise and unexpected distractions. So if you do have any questions, and we hope that you do, you can type them in the Q&A panel at the side of the screen. Or if you're watching us on LinkedIn today, add them to the comment section below. We've got a member of the team on standby to answer those questions live. Okay, so now we've looked at the agenda and we've done the housekeeping. Let's dive in. So Rick, I'm going to come to you first. Before we get into the details of what's new in CleanRoom 3, can you explain what a cleanroom is and what it does?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ben. So when we talk about cleanroom, what we're really talking about here is a cyber recovery cleanroom, or as you might hear it in the industry called a isolated recovery environment. And essentially what we have built here is an isolated environment that you can use to perform recovery testing and malware scanning. There is some confusion around the term cleanroom. So when you look at some of the vendors that are now using the same term as us in the market, you dig into what they mean by cleanroom. What they generally mean is a tool that's used post-attack to do forensic analysis. So you imagine an organisation gets attacked, they're going to want to start to recover workloads somewhere to test those workloads to check they are clean after that attack before they start to restore. So when you see vendors using the phrase cleanroom, that's really what most of them are talking about. At Predatar, what we actually mean by cleanroom is it's a proactive tool. So the Predatar cleanroom is used to be testing your backups for both recoverability and scanning them for malware on a proactive basis rather than just as a reactive tool. And that is the key difference when we talk about cleanrooms within the context of Predatar.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Rick. So over to you next, Ian. So at Predatar, we talk about being a recovery assurance platform. So Ian, can you explain what the role of a cleanroom is within that overall solution?
Of course, Ben. Predatar is built on two core components. The first of all we call CRO software, which stands for Cyber Recovery Orchestration. This is the automation engine at the heart of the platform. It collects metadata from your backup applications and collates that into the platform, which you can then access through your browser. In there, you can choose how you want your recoveries to work, whether that's a single file, an entire workload, then whether you want them to be triggered based on a signal of activity, so some sort of anomaly, or on a schedule. The goal is to prove recoverability every single day, not just when a disaster strikes. The second component we're talking about here is the cleanroom. The cleanroom is essentially a secure, isolated recovery environment where you can test and validate your recoveries without risk to your production environment. This is where we run the recoveries to, followed by malware scans after a successful recovery, all without reintroducing potentially compromised data back into your live systems. It's how we can give organisations confidence that if they ever need to recover for real, their data is clean, usable and safe. So the CRO automates and improves recoverability, and then the cleanroom gives you a safe space to validate that recovery before putting anything back into production. Together they close the loop on recovery assurance.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, closing the loop on recovery assurance. I like that. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to pass this back over to Rick now. Rick, so now we've talked about the concept of recovery assurance. Can you give us an example of a real-world use case, please?
Yeah, I can do that, Ben. There's actually a really highly relevant example at the moment in the UK from an organisation called Marks and Spencer's. So for those not from the UK, Marks and Spencer's it's one of the biggest retailers in the UK. It's been around for as long as I can remember, on every high street, in every town, in petrol stations, in service stations, at airports. You know, they are a big, well-known brand. They were attacked last month by a company called Scattered Spider, who actually attacked them over the Easter break. And we see now more and more of these cyber attacks are happening over holiday periods, where they know the majority of IT people will be out of the office on holiday with their families. The upshot of this attack is that Marks and Spencer's are losing about £43 million per week. They are still not fully recovered, and they've already paid out via their insurance company £100 million to this group. Now, what's really interesting about this attack, and again, this is fairly common, is the ransomware gang originally got access to M&S via social engineering. That was their way into that organisation. Through social engineering, compromised accounts, gave them access. Now, what they didn't do was then just start to install ransomware in that estate. They spent time in that estate, looking around, learning, understanding, getting more and more access. And then once they got to all the systems they wanted, they were able to deploy ransomware. Now, if you Google this attack, you will see something come up called Dragon Force. And a lot of the news is talking about that this ransomware group used Dragon Force as the ransomware. What's really important here is Dragon Force isn't the ransomware. They're actually another gang or another organisation that provide ransomware as a service. So we're seeing this more and more in the industry now, where organisations are basically building ransomware that they deliver as a service to other ransomware gangs to use. And this is a sophisticated outfit. They've got salespeople, account managers, affiliate programs that you can join. What makes these guys so sophisticated is the ransomware tools that they use. They've got something called Lockbit 3.0 Builder, which doesn't really mean anything to a lot of people, but essentially it's a really dangerous piece of malware, and it's highly customizable by their end users, and they can customize it to target certain customers once they've learned about their estate. The way their business model works is if an attack is successful, the gang that's used it will keep 80% of the proceeds. Dragon Force will take 20%. So in the case of M&S, if they have paid out 100 million, the ransomware gang will get 80 million, Dragon Force will get 20 million for that attack. So how can Predator help with that? Well, there's a couple of things Predator can do. So first off, when this ransomware gang will have got access to the Marks and Spencer's environment, as I say, they won't have installed ransomware straight away. They'll have been snooping around that environment. There's a high chance that they will have installed keyloggers, spying software to learn as much about that environment as possible. Now, if they bypassed their security tools, which quite often they will do, and they'll install these spyware and keyloggers without triggering the kind of perimeter alarms, if you like. This is where Predator, through recovery testing and actually doing full malware scans of those workloads, has a high chance of picking up those keyloggers and spyware. We've actually found malware in 80% of our customers, and a high portion of that is things like keyloggers and spyware that is often used by these gangs to do the surveillance before they do their main attack. So there's a high chance this gang will have used those types of tools to learn more, and then at the appropriate time they will have then obviously implemented the ransomware from Dragonforce and locked that environment down. So that's one way we could help, is through malware scanning to pick up these keyloggers and so on. There's also, once the encryption event starts to take place, Predator has things like anomaly detection built in, which would trigger when workloads started to get triggered. That would be another way that you could obviously help these organisations understand that something is happening within their estate. And the third way is through the recovery testing itself. So Marks and Spencer's still haven't fully recovered, and that is because the ransomware gang actually got access to their backups, because they had full access to their whole environment, and it's usually where they will go first. They will lock down the backup environment, corrupt that so that that safety net is removed. With Predator, because we're monitoring that backup environment all the time, we'll be able to give that organisation advice. So don't link your backup to Active Directory. Predator would call that out. Keep your credentials separate. Make sure you've got backups that are immutable. Predator's monitoring that for best practice, and it would give that information to this organisation. So really 3 ways that we could help, which is finding malware or the ransomware that's been implemented through our scanning, the anomaly detection, which would help you detect encryption events, and then the monitoring and guidance around best practice.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. That's a great example. But there's lots of technologies on the market offering cyber resilience right now. So Ian, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what's different about Predator.
That's a great question, and it's one we hear a lot. There are plenty of technologies out there that claim to offer cyber resilience, but there are a few key ways that Predator really stands out. First and foremost, Predator is unified. A lot of the options on the market today come directly from a backup and storage vendor, and the big catch with those is they're built to only work with their own ecosystem and stack that you're purchasing from. So if you don't want lock-in to a specific vendor or running a mix of technologies, which a lot of the people here will be running, you'll end up with multiple tools, multiple consoles, and there's a lot of complexity to manage around that as well. Predator takes a platform approach. We support multiple backup products. We're agnostic to the technology stack, and whether you're using IBM, Rubrik, Veeam, Cohesity, we can integrate and orchestrate recovery across all of them. And it's not just about the products. We can support multiple workloads on those products too, physical, virtual, snapshots from a storage subsystem, you name it. So instead of siloed tools for each backup platform or application, Predator gives you one solution that works across many. It's centralized, consistent, and also scalable. The second big difference is around speed and simplicity. Essentially, when it comes to setting up things like cleanrooms, many of the products on the market today are more like DIY kits. They come with a reference architecture, some automation scripts, and then it's up to you to pull it all together for your own resources. That might be fine for a huge enterprise with dedicated teams, but for most organizations, it's a slow, complex, and costly project. Predator takes a completely different approach. We've gone down the route of productizing it. We can deploy a fully functioning cleanroom environment integrated with orchestration, automation, validation, and reporting in just a matter of hours, not weeks. No complex integration, no hiring teams to build it out, just straightforward deployment and value from day one. So in summary, it's one platform that brings together multiple backup products, supports a wide range of workloads, and makes recovery validation fast, simple, and accessible to any organisation.
Thanks, Ian. I'm sure we'll be talking more about the speed and simplicity point again in a few minutes, because I know that's kind of a key benefit of CleanRoom 3. Rick, before we move on, have you got anything you'd like to add with regard to what's different about Predator?
Yeah, again, great question, Ben. And I think, Ian's covered that really, really well, as he always does. But there's a couple of things it's just worth adding to Ian's answer. I think the first thing that differentiates Predator is it's a proven technology. We've been doing recovery testing for the best part of 12 years. And we brought our clean room to market, almost 5 years ago. And it's in use all around the world. So, we've got customers in pretty much every geography using Predator with our Predator clean rooms, and we've got numerous case studies to obviously back that fact up. And as I mentioned before, 80% of it's actually 82% of our customers have found malware in their environments that their primary XDR tools didn't find, which for me is a phenomenal statistic. To have such a high percentage shows you that even if you have the very, very best XDR tools at the front, things can still get through for a lot of reasons. So the more checks and balances and layers of defense that you can have, the better. And Predator is just another way to get an extra layer of defense and give you the chance to spot malware and other, viruses getting into your estate.
Okay, great. So I think we've got a good overview of recovery assurance, clean rooms and Predator now. So let's focus more specifically on Clean Room 3. First of all, Rick, can you tell me where the idea came from? I mean, what was wrong with Clean Room 2?
I think the first thing to say, Ben, is there was nothing wrong with Clean Room 2. And in some instances, Clean Room 2 still may be the best option for customers. Where Clean Room 3 came from was actually from our sellers, some of our customers, and some of our partners that we work with. The idea of clean rooms resonates across the market with our customers, but we were getting feedback that they want to make it as easy as possible to deploy Clean Room 3. And they didn't want to be buying lots of third-party products to make that happen. So with Clean Room 2, for example, you need Windows licenses, you need SQL licenses, you need VMware licenses, you need your own XDR licenses. And we actually use those within our clean room to then deploy that to the customers. That just adds complexity, adds cost, and it can slow down implementations for customers. So with Clean Room 3, the kind of two main guiding principles were we wanted to make these clean rooms as easy and quick to deploy as possible, and we wanted to remove any dependency on third-party licenses. So that's what we went after, to make implementations, rather than being 2 or 3 days, which they were with Clean Room 2, make them less than a day. Once you've got your prereq sorted with Clean Room 3, you can deploy that in less than 1 hour. And also remove the need for those Windows, VMware, Trend third-party licenses, so that customers can deploy as many clean rooms as they want with their environment without the extra overhead and extra costs that would come from those third parties.
Great, thank you, Rick. So, as Predator's CTO, Ian, I guess it fell to you and your team to put the concept into action and make Predator's third-generation cleanroom a reality. So can you talk us through what's new in Clean Room 3?
Yes, I'm excited to walk you through what's new, because this is where we've really made some big strides, not just from a technical perspective, but also in terms of making clean rooms much more accessible and scalable for our customers. So let me break it down across a few key areas. Firstly, we've removed the dependency on third-party software and licensing. In earlier iterations of Cleanroom, there were certain third-party tools and licenses, especially VMware, that we had to lean on. That added complexity, cost and friction for our customers. With Cleanroom 3, we've designed the entire environment to be natively driven by the Predator portal. And that means that there's no additional licensing requirements, no extra software stacks that the customer need to purchase, maintain or configure. Everything is just powered and controlled natively through Predator. So we've massively simplified that stack, which not only makes it cleaner and quicker to deploy, but also removes those hidden blockers around license management and support overheads that customers were experiencing. Secondly, we no longer require new hardware or cloud infrastructure. This is one of the most powerful changes in Cleanroom 3, eliminating the need for customers to stand up new infrastructure, whether that's physical servers or spinning up a collection of virtual machines to do different functions. Instead, CleanRoom 3 lets you deploy into your new or existing environment exactly however you want it, whether that be on bare metal or a VM virtualized through VMware or Hyper-V. So for customers, this means that there's no new hardware, there's no additional software contracts, and no need to carve out and maintain separate infrastructure. You just deploy it how you need it for your environment, and then we bring the cleanroom to life on top of it, completely isolated, fully secure, and built for recovery assurance. Thirdly, the deployment is now faster than ever, and this is one that we've really pushed ourselves on because we knew it was one of the biggest barriers to cyber recovery solutions was the time to value. In CleanRoom 3, we've built a fully automated deployment process, and we're talking about end-to-end provisioning, configuration, and validation that used to take weeks. Now it's just done in a few hours. This is thanks to the wizard within the Predatar portal, which generates an ISO image specific for your environment, complete with all of the networking and configuration embedded within it. This allows customers to run their unique ISO image against any system that they choose, whether that be a virtual machine or whether they choose to deploy it onto bare metal. The process is as simple as connect the system to the ISO image, boot from it, and then sit back and relax while everything is configured for you. We've essentially removed the DIY complexity and replaced it with a push-button deployment experience. So now cleanroom projects aren't weeks long. They're something a customer can stand up in a morning, run test jobs that afternoon, and start building true recovery confidence immediately. So to sum it up, CleanRoom 3 is all about removing friction. So there's no more third-party software or extra licensing that's required. We've lowered the barrier to entry with no new infrastructure needed. And then we're delivering value faster through the rapid deployment that's built into the product now.
Great, thank you, Ian. So it looks to me like CleanRoom 3 is another big stride forward for Predatar and for recovery assurance technology as a whole. So we're coming up to the end of the session now, so I'm going to wrap up with 3 key takeaways that I would like you to remember as viewers. So firstly, if you're not using any sort of proactive recovery assurance today, there's a really high chance that there's malware in your backups already, like 80% of Predatar customers before they deployed our solution. So secondly, remember Predatar is the only vendor-agnostic preemptive recovery assurance platform available. And my third point is that CleanRoom 3 has made recovery assurance more attainable for lots of organisations, more cost-effective, more flexible, easier to deploy. So if you want to know more about how Predatar's recovery assurance platform can benefit your organisation, visit www.predatar.com, email hello@predatar.com, or you can contact any of us directly. So the only thing remaining for me to do is to say thank you to all of you for joining us today, and to say thanks and goodbye to Rick.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ben. I really enjoyed that, and thanks to everyone for tuning in and listening to us.
And to Ian.
No problem. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, everyone. I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.